Obviously, war has changed. We saw that dramatically in Ukraine. When the war first started, the artillery was the weapon of choice. Probably 70% of the munitions used 155 rounds on our side, and the introduction of drones on the Ukrainian side, very little on the Russian side in the beginning. That's totally flipped. The Ukrainians now are making 350,000 drones a month. The Russians a similar amount. They've attached artificial intelligence to the drones where they cannot be jammed, and they continue to evolve the drones on the battlefield almost daily. Obviously, during Operation Epic Fury, we saw low-cost one-way attack drones that were used to overwhelm our air and missile defense systems. The proliferation of this capability not only underpins the need to field effective counter-UAS technologies, but low-cost effectors. General, given the urgency of these threats, how is the Army ensuring that the most capable counter-UAS technology are rapidly fielding to soldiers? And Secretary, if you could add in, what steps is the Army going to take to accelerate the development of deployment of cost-effective kinetic and non-kinetic counter-UAS technology?
Sure. Thanks for the question. Our Secretary has pushed us very hard to move as fast as possible, provide the latest equipment to our soldiers in the field, and we've pushed numerous new systems to include Mare Ops and some other counter-drone capabilities into RCENT and CENTCOM to help counter the threat. It's holistic, sir. So we are tied in very closely with the Joint Interagency Task Force 401 that the Army started. So that's working to get new capabilities as fast as possible into our soldiers' hand. One, to experiment with them, and then to scale it as fast as possible to get it in the hands of soldiers forward. And then we're tied in incredibly closely with the Department of War's Defense Autonomous Working Group that is at a higher level working to get systems as fast as possible in our hands. This is a huge undertaking. So you hit on a couple other points. We're also going after, and the Secretary's pushing us really hard on this, to go after as fast as possible low-cost munitions to be able to help counter these UAS, and to go after companies that say they can scale and scale fast, and we're working with them, with our team to do it. But it also is a part in our organic industrial base that we have to retool these facilities to be able to help us produce at scale the munitions and the systems that we're going to need to counter this threat, not only that we're seeing right now, but we potentially are going to see with our pacing threat.
Chairman, I think the answer in a lot of ways is not very sexy. And what the ranking member said, I couldn't possibly agree with any more about the cost of interceptors and the math just not scaling. But a lot of people have been saying that for a very long time. Fundamentally, one of the core problems was our own bureaucracy, our own infrastructure, our own decision-making organizations had decayed from any sort of speed and rationality. And so the reason we've been able to move fast since the conflict in Iran started is because of work 10, 12, 14 months ago to reorganize our acquisitions department and convert over from PEOs to PAEs. And practically what that did is it took us from like a 16-step decision-making process where each of the bodies along those 16 steps could veto it and start it back over, and it could take 2 to 7 years to purchase something sometimes. We consolidated it down. We put everybody into a group who could make decisions on the fly. And so when the conflict kicked off, within about 8 days, we were able to go purchase what General Laneeve was referencing, these 13,000 Mare Ops, which are incredible. They're about $15,000 a piece right now. We think as they scale, they'll get to less than 10. And we're able to take Shaheeds down that cost $30,000 to $50,000, which is amazing because that puts us on the right end of the cost curve. And we will make that trade all day long. And so a lot of the things the Army has worked on in the previous year are paying dividends as we try to make decisions quickly today.
Yeah, I'm going to turn this over to the ranking member, but for this a comment, some of this is a dual-use capability. We have the Olympics coming to California. We have the World Cup coming up here in just a few weeks. Obviously we have high security concerns, and that capability needs to be shared, obviously, with the private security people, and and hopefully that is taking place, and that you're all working together in that.
Yes, sir. Because of my role as acting director of ATF, we have a pretty strong tie-in to the Department of Justice. And so we've hosted on Fort Myer 350 state and local police departments all came in. We are syncing them into the JIATA 401 that General Leneve is talking about. We have launched a marketplace that's an Amazon-like marketplace where counter-drone technology suppliers can list their products. We, the United States Army, are reviewing it almost like Consumer Reports. And then state and local and federal law enforcement officers across the country can purchase from this site. We've already had purchases. And then very crucially, everyone on the site is basically agreeing to try to use the same site picture to monitor the drones, because one of the problems is they cross so many jurisdictions. You need to be able to have everybody see the same thing to react. And so we're really optimistic that this is a whole of government approach with a lot of buy-in for these big events coming up.
Great, thank you. Ms. McCullum.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, I'm going to ask a question here, but I'm going to set this up. Since on November 15th, for decades, someone from the Secretary of Defense's chief would come in, and we would get a briefing, kind of the whole picture. And it wasn't an audit, but the health of the finance for the department. That hasn't happened in decades. That even isn't happening anymore. And as you pointed out, you've only been Secretary of the Army for 1 year, 51 days. And thank you for taking on added responsibility. I had forgotten all about being acting director of alcohol, firearms, and tobacco. So thank you for that. So please know this is not personal, but we're doing our job here. And so we're going to ask for your help in doing that. In the Army's budget, you've requested to compress lines in procurement and research and development. And I'm concerned about that because the budget request also, at the same time, cuts financial management and audit readiness lines, okay, by $200 million. And so that's a concern because we've been trying to get audits, and I always have to give the Marine Corps a big shout out. They've done it. People say, well, they're smaller. I'm just going to say maybe, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to pick a favorite child here, but they've done audits, okay? So I'm going to ask for the reason for this cut as